Hello everybody and welcome to Hot Wheels Monster Trucks. And this is MatchUp 17. And let's get started. To start this off, we have BigFoot. Go big, go Hot Wheels. Oh, and BigFoot failed. Next up is Stars and Stripes. And Stars and Stripes fails. Next up is Hot Wheels Racing number 1. Oh! And Hot Wheels Racing number 1 fails. Next up is 32 Degrees. Oh, and 32 Degrees made a perfect landing but fails. Next up is Scorcher. Oh, and Scorcher failed. Next up is All Beefed Up. And All Beefed Up gets a point. Next up is Rodger Dodger. Oh, and Rodger Dodger missed. Next up is VA Bomber. Oh, and VA Bomber was very close but fails. Next up is Camaro SS. Oh, and Camaro SS fails. Next up is Dairy Delivery. And Dairy Delivery gets a point. Next up is Darth Vader. And Darth Vader gets a point. Next up is SuperFasto. Ooh, SuperFasto was so close but fails. Next up is Pure Muscle. Oh, Pure Muscle was struggling but recovers and fails. Next up is Spongebob Squarepants. Ooh, Spongebob fails. Next up is Skeleton Crew. And Skeleton Crew gets a point. Yep, Skeleton Crew gets a point. Next up is Dodge Charger RT. And Dodge Charger RT gets a point. Last up for this round is Bone Shaker. Ooh, and Bone Shaker fails. Round 2. To start off round 2, we have VA Bomber. Go big, go Hot Wheels. Ooh, and VA Bomber fails. Next up is Camaro SS. And Camaro SS makes a perfect landing and gets a point. Next up is the king of the monster trucks, BigFoot. And BigFoot gets a point. Next up is Bone Shaker. Oh, Bone Shaker was really close but fails. Next up is Dairy Delivery. Oh, and Dairy Delivery does not get a point. Next up is Dodge Charger RT. Oh, Dodge Charger RT was really close to pressing the buzzer but fails. Next up is Rodger Dodger. And Rodger Dodger gets a point. Next up is Spongebob Squarepants. And Spongebob gets a point. Next up is Stars and Stripes. And Stars and Stripes gets a point. Next up is Pure Muscle. And Pure Muscle gets a point. Next up is SuperFasto. Oh! SuperFasto was so close to getting his first point. Next up is Scorcher. Oh, and Scorcher fails. Next up is All Beefed Up. Oh, and all beefed up fails. Next up is Darth Vader. And Darth Vader gets a point. Next up is Skeleton Crew. Oh, and Skeleton Crew fails. Next up is Hot Wheels Racing number 1. Oh, and Hot Wheels Racing number 1 almost made it. Last truck for this round is 32 degrees. Oh, and 32 degrees gets stuck and will not be receiving a point. Round 3. To start off round 3, we have El SuperFasto. Go big, go Hot Wheels! Oh, and El SuperFasto does not get a point yet. Next up is Hot Wheels Racing number 1. And Hot Wheels Racing number 1 gets a point. Next up is Stars and Stripes. Oh, Soda Stripes was doing amazing, but he failed. Next up is 32 degrees. And 32 degrees gets a point. Next up is Pure Muscle. And Pure Muscle fails. Next up is Camaro SS. And Camaro SS gets a point. Next up is Spongebob Squarepants. And Spongebob Squarepants makes an amazing landing and gets a point. Next up is Dairy Delivery. And Dairy Delivery gets a point. Next up is Darth Vader. And Darth Vader gets a point. Next up is All Beefed Up. And All Beefed Up gets a point. Next up is V8 Bomber. And V8 Bomber gets a point. Next up is BigFoot. And BigFoot slides to the buzzer and gets a point. Next up is Rodger Dodger. And Rodger Dodger gets a point. Next up is Bone Shaker. And Bone Shaker gets a point. Next up is Skeleton Crew. And Skeleton Crew slides to the buzzer and gets a point. Next up is Dodge Charger RT. And Dodge Charger RT gets a point. Now time for the last attempt for today. Scorcher. Oh, Scorcher almost made it. And guys, that wraps up Hot Wheels Monster Trucks Matchup 17. And remember, we're in March right now, and this is the second to last month until the Titan Cup. And make sure to stay tuned for that. The very first Titan Cup on this channel. And guys, that wraps up this video. And see you guys next time for more Hot Wheels Monster Trucks.